Join us as we sit down with Dr. David Cruz, the visionary behind WebExercises, who's transforming sports medicine and rehabilitation with cutting-edge technology. With decades of experience working with tons of athletes, elite athletes, Dr. Cruz shares how personalized exercise programs and advanced tech are shaping and reshaping recovery and performance. Curious about all the AI in health or the biggest myths in injury prevention? This is an episode you won't want to miss. Get ready to rethink everything you know about rehab and recovery.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. We've got the big and famous and legend Dr. David Cruz on. And yeah, David, you bring such a wealth of knowledge in rehabilitation, exercise technology, sports medicine. And as the founder and CEO of WebEx, we're so happy to have you because hopefully today we're going to talk about bridging health tech and practical rehabilitation tools that the masses can use as well as healthcare providers. But we're so happy to have you on the show today, bud. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carey and Lord Barron. I had to throw that in. I really appreciate the opportunity. I've known Spencer for a bit of time, and it's great meeting you, Terry. So I love being able to share what I can share and learn what I can learn from you guys as well. And looking forward to it.
Awesome. That's awesome. So, with decades of experience as a chiropractor and working with athletes and teams, you have a CSCS, which is a strength and conditioning specialist. You hold advanced certifications in corrective exercises, a movement screen. I mean, you're so overqualified to talk about rehab. So I love to hear how you started. What's your journey and how you got here?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, let's go back. What the harp that goes, the music that takes you back and so forth to early 2005. I graduated from Life West in a 96, got into private practice and quickly learned that your care is only as good as it is in the office. And if you can get patients to participate more, they tend to get better. So I've always looked at patient care as a shared responsibility where part doc, part patient. And so since I've come from kind of a sports medicine undergraduate and I'm a nerd with regards to looking at all the different movement screens and all those things. And so it really started out of need in that at the time, if you can remember the printed handouts of stick figures, I mean, that was kind of the gold standard. And then, okay, you circle the ones you want and you hand them to the patients. And the next thing you know, you walk out to your car at the end of the day and there's your patient's paperwork on the ground, right? In the parking lot. Go, I guess you're not doing that at home, right? And so, it's one of those things. So you go, okay, well, this doesn't work too well. So it literally started, I had a patient as a software programmer, and I kind of thought, I don't know, this light bulb went off. You know what? There's this new thing called the internet. And can we deliver some photos and videos over, this online internet, AOL, whatever it is, the dial-up and so forth. And so that's honestly where it started. It started out of need in the sense of, how do I provide better care for my patients, right? And we've all figured this out. I know you guys have been practitioners and have tons of experience, and it's how do you figure stuff out? If something doesn't exist, well, what do I need to do to figure it out? And honestly, that's where it was. And so I started talking to my software programmer, and we had a very basic version of WebExercises on my personal website that had about 40 or so exercises for patients to go to. Hey, go to my office website, click on like hip or low back, and you'll see some exercise I want you to do. And then as probably got 60, 70 exercises, I came to him and said, is this something that we could actually offer to kind of the public, and not public, but basically to healthcare? Because we go to healthcare providers. We go to mainly chiropractors and also physical therapists and other sports medicine. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So at that point, signed a contract with the company he worked for. And we built out the initial version. But what I didn't realize was you need broadband to deliver images, videos, and so forth. And we had dial-up. Broadband was only in about 18 to 20% of businesses in 2005, 2006. So, I struggled a bit. I, continued to do what I could to get out there. And we pivoted. We created what's called a desktop CD. So it was a single install. So we sold a CD of WebExercises through different distribution companies, Myers and others, that you'd buy it, you install it, and it was there. There was no online. And that's what really kept us going till about 2012 when the online started to adapt. It was one of those things, just like any business, I don't care whether it's chiropractic or a hardware store, when you meet challenges, you just kind of figure it out. What do I need to do, right? And so fortunately I had, my programmer's been with me and still is to this day. And we had the idea, well, let's see if we can make a CD of it instead so we don't rely on the internet. And that's what we did. So it's really been this kind of serendipitous journey. It's one of those things that we always think of success as I have, a plan and a goal, and we're just going to do this. But if you really look at it, it's just kind of a squiggly line back and forth and just figuring out. And, I've been fortunate enough to really have people come in at this certain time of, you're at a critical moment, I say, and you've just been blessed with somebody coming in at the right time. And if I can, I'll share an interesting story not a lot of people know about.
Yeah.
So it was probably about 2007, and I was kind of struggling in that I'm practicing. I don't know much about software and building a software business, but I'm trying to figure it out. Healthcare providers are creatures of just habit to this day, and I know that. And so they don't like technology necessarily at the time. It was early on. And if you look at this famous book called Crossing the Chasm of how you adopt technologies and so forth, it's this bell curve. And there's the early adopters and then the late adopters and so forth. And then there's these laggards at the end. I mean, healthcare are the laggards of technology, right? So I was struggling with just trying to keep this idea going because I really had a vision of how can I make healthcare providers more successful and patients more successful? And I think this is something which could do it. And so I went to this business meeting and I met this guy, and we'll just call him Ernie for now. And I was explaining it, and he really liked the idea. And he was somebody that, knew how to do things and knew how to grow things and knew how to raise money and all those things. And I didn't know anything, right? So I'm just listening and, okay, sounds great and so forth. So we continue the conversation after. And then he starts talking about, okay, well, we need to raise money. We need to do this. And then, you know what, we need to strategize. And I'm like, okay, sounds good, right? I know nothing from nothing. So sounds like you know what you're talking about. Okay. And I live in the Bay Area where there's just a lot of tech kind of resources and companies and consultants. So, okay. So we set up a meeting. He said, the first thing we need to do is set up a brainstorming session, but I need you to bring in people that you trust. And I thought, okay, but shouldn't we also bring in some people that you think are key? But okay. And it's going to cost you $2,000 for me to run this brainstorming session that you're bringing the people in for. I was like, okay, I'm still trying to right? So we had it set for this Sunday, and then it turns into his fees are pay him outright. He wants percentage of the company and right and all that. I didn't sign anything yet. I was waiting until we did this brainstorming session. So we had it set on a Sunday at my office, right? It's like, okay, you bring the people, it's at your place and you're gonna pay me $2,000. I look back on this and go, come on, right? So back to serendipity, and you never know how things intervene in your life. It's a Thursday morning before. I didn't see patients on that Thursday morning. I was supposed to do paperwork, but I'm sure I was just working on WebExercises, right? That's all I was doing. Phone rings. Pick it up. Hey, Dave, it's Mike. My neck's killing me. Do you mind if I come in? Tell you who Mike is shortly. Sure, Mike, come on in. He comes in, not seen any patients, but it's a long-time patient. Put him on the treatment table, put a little old stim, hydrocollar pack on his neck and so forth. And then I just tend to chat, right? I'm with my patients. I just chat and talk and so forth. And I told him a little bit about WebExercises and great and so forth. And so I told him that I was kind of stuck. I'm meeting with this guy, Ernie. I think this is the way forward and this and that and so forth. And I'll never forget this. The guy is Mike McCullen. You guys hear of Power Bar or Cliff Bar? He's the founder of it. Mike,
I know exactly who he is.
The nicest gentleman you'll ever meet. He sold that. He went on to have other companies, construction companies. He's the type of guy, he would come in work boots. He's digging trenches, working with the crew, right? I mean, just an amazing guy, okay? I'll never forget this. He's face down. He looks up and goes, "Don't you do that. I deal with those SOBs all the time. They will do anything they can to get 51% of your business. You're not doing anything wrong. You cancel that meeting. Then you call me for anything you need. There's no shortcuts. It's hard work. Keep your head down and keep doing what you're doing." And he stayed for like a half hour and talked to me after that. And at that point, sorry, Ernie, we're off, right? So it's these certain things that you're thankful for that really try to, and there's been others as well that change that trajectory. That, okay, this is my vision. I'm not quite sure. I'm trusting, but then something else comes in to say, no, stick with what you know. Keep going. Keep your head down, and there's no shortcuts. And so, yeah, just for lack of a better word, just kept grinding. And then I joined this medical orthopedic group, in 2007 or 8 and practiced with them for many, many years too.
Let's talk pasta, oats, grains, and more. I'm gluten-free, and this one item I can have without any consequences. Since we always talk about fueling our bodies the right way, that's where Guardian Grains comes in. No kidding. Their products are a massive shift towards healthy eating. Guardian Grains is all about healthy, sustainable grains that not only taste great, but are great for you and the planet. Whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, Guardian Grains has you covered with all kinds of nutrition that keep you going strong. Perfect for long days of just living life. Plus, knowing it's sustainably grown, that's a win-win. Sincere appreciation goes to the Guardian Grains for sponsorship of this episode and for making it easy to stay healthy while supporting sustainable farming. Click the link below the description to buy some of your own. You'll taste the difference.
Wow, unbelievable. There's a saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I'd say that it's pretty lucky, man.
Kind of in sport too, right? You practice hard, and you know what? The lucky you are, the harder you practice. Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Awesome. Yeah.
What happened? I would love to know what based on technology and how technology has transitioned so much.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about dial-up, which I crack up about that whole thing to look back on how we evolved from that. And then you created a CD, and then now we have this evolution. When did you switch out technologically to?
Yeah, good question. It was I think it was 2000. Was it 2012, 2014 when EHRs became more mandated? I can't remember the years, either 12 or 14 when really it was a push that you needed to start using EHRs in your facility. That's what really kind of pushed it forward to the online. And from there, that's where the adoption became more. That's where we started integrating with some more, we integrate with the EHR companies. And that's where it kind of started. But I would say back to healthcare providers being the laggards on technology. And I don't mean that in any way, because I practice and I know I was a creature of habit and so forth. It's just we get set in our ways, and it's a lot of times hard to adopt these new procedures. And I think because we were kind of forced to actually start adopting some EHR technology is what helped. Yeah.
That's funny. I think back, I hadn't thought about this in a while, but I remember when our desktop computers were this wide, or this deep, and I remember learning Dragon software. Do you guys remember Dragon?
Yes,
It was the first
absolutely.
dictation
Dictation,
software
absolutely.
for hours, and it would still get the words wrong that you're trying. Oh my God. So yeah, there was quite an evolution there. So how do you see the transformation in now you went back to internet, and then what I really want to know is when the pandemic hit.
Yep.
How did things could have changed massively for you or not?
Yeah, I mean, it was twofold. One, so I got out of practice in 15, 16, active practice, and then focused on web exercises. We grew year over year till the pandemic hit. We actually grew a little bit more beginning of the pandemic. I think partly because everybody was trying to figure out, hey, how am I going to keep in touch with my patients and do that sort of thing. But then after people, I think, understood that, hey, this is going to continue to go on for a while and my bottom line is affected and so forth, we've actually dipped about 10, 15% since the pandemic. And now we're finally kind of coming out of that. So I think it was on the exercise prescription home exercise platform. It's one of those things that people first jumped on, but then it became more of a financial. And I think we're still dealing with financial. I mean, if you look at all industries, I mean, everything is in this odd. I don't care if it's tech, healthcare, finance. I mean, everything's odd right now in the past year or two. And so I think we're all trying to figure out this kind of what's this new normal. On the good side, we have a fully compliant online education platform. We've got hundreds of hours of online education for chiropractors, physical therapists, and certified athletic trainers. What the pandemic did was push the online education, fast forward it. So it allowed a lot more online learning instead of butts in the seat. So that was good because a lot of states at the time were only maybe quarter, half hours can be online. And then what it did was allow a lot of states to just be like, oh, you can do all your education online. So it was kind of twofold, I think, with regards to our education versus our HEP program.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because all of a sudden during the pandemic, maybe a year into it, everybody was doing exercise programs so you can exercise at home. And that's why I asked, because I thought maybe there was a point where you just would, suddenly, blow up.
Yeah. I mean, initially we did spike. And then I think as I mentioned, everybody realized this isn't going away very quickly. And I got to start looking at my bottom line and what I'm spending, because everything's just a little odd. And it stayed for, at least in California, it was crazy how long the restriction stayed in place.
Not in Florida.
I know that. Just saying, I know. Yeah, different world in California.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Dave. Personalization is such a key thing now because you can make it really personal.
Sure.
How important has that become for you? Because it's from the days of sending somebody a disc, with a bunch of exercise on it. Yeah. How is it done now?
No, good question. And I mean, part of my belief from the beginning in starting web exercises is, right exercise for the right condition gets the right results. And the right exercise is only if you have an assessment. And that's why we only go to healthcare providers. We don't go at all to the public, because we want the right exercise based on what that patient's being really seen for. And so that's where, with our platform, it can be very, very specific to that condition and then sent to them digitally on their phone or computer. And there's tracking, so the provider knows exactly how that patient's doing when they're not in the office. Are they logging in? Are they doing the exercise? Do they have pain? Do they have any comments? So it's really a touch point to make sure your patient is successful when they leave the office. And patients successful outside the office make us successful, in the office. That's really kind of where it comes from.
You said something that everything from your Ernie story to everything else that you hit these challenges instead of just turning around, you kind of hit them and figure out a way around the wall. So is there any other story that kind of stands out that of a unique challenge that you faced when you're trying to educate the clinician who has to educate the patient? through a platform that you can, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah. I'll tell you a story, another story where I was stuck. It was probably 2012, 13 or something of the sort. And it was very similar in that we did okay with the CD, but hadn't totally transitioned into the online. We're in this weird situation of people like the CD because from a purchasing standpoint, you want something that's tangible at the time. When I go to buy something, I want something tangible. We weren't used to at the time something online that's intangible. It's like it's fairy dust. It doesn't exist, right? It's just, so how do you make something tangible? And that was with our CD. People got the package, they loaded in the computer, right? And it was tangible, it's tactic, right? You can feel it, touch it, look at it. Versus I sign up online, you're taking my money for this online thing. And now that's all we do, right? But in 2010, 12, it's like, right? People are not even believing in that probably, right? And so that was probably another little bit of a sticking point. And I'm not quite sure how I met him. And I remember sitting in the parking lot in my office, getting on a call with somebody that put me in touch with somebody that put me in touch with somebody. And he said, you know what, I think this gentleman, Jerry, could be, really helpful for you. I'm like, sure, great. So I met with Jerry, and he turns out at the time to be the Senior VP of Global Technology for HP Agilent. Okay. He had started an incubator for a bunch of startups near where I am in Northern California. And he became a good friend. Just a mentor and a good friend. And I've had coffee with them a couple months ago. I look at, again, these serendipitous situations where you're kind of stuck, and then just somebody comes in and gives you some, whether it's encouragement, direction, whether it is motivation. Something that you need to help kind of keep you moving forward. And I know I've had other instances, but those two are probably I feel like as at such this crossroads in both situations, do I keep doing this or not? Because we always question ourselves and so forth. And I really remember those two situations as kind of pivotal for me. And, fortunately, I was blessed that somebody came into my life and that gave me some of that direction at the time. And with that said, and I went sideways on your question. So
no, that's good.
I think it was an education question, or we can move on to something else. I kind of lost track as I went to that story.
No, it was just that transition. But actually, I have a more philosophical question that stems from your two stories of revelation to you.
Yep.
What were you thinking of how were you thinking before these angels came into your world and shared some thought process that moved you forward or changed the way you thought dramatically? What was it what was going through your head?
Failure, I think. And here's something which, honestly, there's a few people that know those two stories. Only a couple people know this. Well, there's going to be a lot of people that know this after I tell you. But here's the thing. So I started WebExercises with a small inheritance I got from my grandparents. I was very close to my grandparents. And it was one of those things that, right, I'm in practice. Software's not cheap to build a software platform. So I took that, part of that, and that's what was the initial seed of it. I didn't go to any investors. I didn't do anything. So when I say failure, letting down my grandparents, who I was really close to.
Did that drive you? Is that what
to some degree, still to this day. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was very close to them. And to this day, I still think about that. And I think back to, again, failure, right? Questioning yourself if you're doing the right things and so forth. And probably, I would say not only failure for myself, but failing these people that I cared about that gave me the opportunity to do that.
So in other words, you didn't want to let them down, whether they're still alive or not.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yep.
And that was your provocative driving factor right there.
Yeah, there were a lot of factors, and that was definitely something that and to this day, I still feel that. Yeah. True story.
Do you ever wish they were around to show them
what absolutely. I grew up with them, so absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big military supporter. My grandpa was a Marines 4th Division in World War II, Guadalcanal, all the worst places ever. So I come from some military people, and so that's why we're big supporters of the military.
Awesome.
Dave, the idea of working with professional athletes and elite athletes, I mean, sometimes it's easy because they're so highly motivated that you give them anything and they're going to follow through. But What advice would you have for the average Joe? The average Josephine, the average person, in other words. I immediately thought of anybody woke out there that if I just said Joe, they go, "Oh, I'm not listening to that. Yeah, he's all male oriented." Sorry. So my apologies.
I don't think anyone who is woke listens to you guys.
David, that sounded like God just now from above.
Exactly.
Oh man, that was good. Oh God.
So what would I give Josephine, right?
Yeah. How about the average human?
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's the thing. I mean, what I try and because when I'll still lecture maybe half times a year at different places. And I try and also bring in the general population on the why. It's like we all have our why. Why do you do? Why do you get up in the morning? Why do you do what you do? So how can we give some patients some why they need to exercise? And so there's a couple things. Kind of if you look at general health, I mean, two things I think of. If you look at during the pandemic. If you look at a study done by Kaiser, close to 50,000 people, and it was basically based on your cardiovascular fitness level. And it was how much exercise you had. Did you have, 0 to 10 minutes a day? Did you have up to 30 minutes? Did you have more? And there's a clear linear relationship between the more you exercised, the least symptoms you had with COVID. So your mortality rate was much, much less, the better you were cardiovascular and exercise fit related. So there's no question that exercise and moving makes a difference. If you look at the top 40 musculoskeletal and health conditions across the world, they're all helped by exercise. I mean, there's not one on that list that isn't improved with exercise. And so I try and also get across, hey, you don't need to give exercises just to your active athletes and people that are doing things on a regular basis. It almost makes a bigger impact to give exercises to patients that aren't doing much. How do you just get them moving again? Because that's going to make a lot of times the biggest impact. I mean, if we look at simple things too. So I want to be able to give people simple things they can do anywhere. I mean, another great study shows it was 1,100 firefighters over, it was a 10-year follow-up. And so let me ask you guys, okay? Can you do 10 push-ups?
Yes.
Can you do 20?
Yes.
Can you do 30?
Yes.
Can you do 40?
Yes.
Okay. So there was a clear linear relationship, 90% decrease in a cardiovascular event, i.e. heart attack, with firefighters that could do 40 push-ups or more. So as we think of I need to go out and do cardiovascular for just heart health and so forth. No, you can actually do some real basic strength training things. And if you look at the data, a lot of resistance training significantly helps your cardiovascular condition. And so my point being is that it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be a lot. It just has to be something that is simple to get them to do it. And a lot of times behavior changes is difficult. It takes anywhere from 21 days to 265 days to change a behavior, right? So we need to give patients a support. If people are really motivated, it change sooner. If not, it takes longer. So, what can we do as a clinician to support them with that, to give feedback, to give reminders and so forth? And so with WebExercises, we have tied in some reminders if they're not logging into their program. So we're trying to do our best, but it's also up to the provider. And so we know at least what we do, we're on the right track. We did a research study, and stop me if I'm going on and on.
No.
In 2016, a PhD DC, he was the chair of rehabilitation for School of Medicine out at Florida State University. Yes, Florida State. And so John Mayer is his name, and I'd known him previously.
Yeah.
And so, do you know who John is? John Mayer?
Yeah. Wait, Terry, didn't we interview John?
Wait, did we?
The researcher.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's in California.
Yes, you did. Sorry. Yeah.
He moved to California. Yep. He's no longer there, and he's out in California now.
Yes.
Yep. So I've known John for years. We met a long time ago. So in 2016, he had done a couple studies with firefighters that showed if we do some core exercises and so forth, it helps with disability and back pain, right? But the problem is they were putting a trainer in the firehouses. So how do we make this more efficient, cost effective? So he called me up and said, hey, we're taking bids on this. And so since the public university, we had to submit bids and so forth. So we got the contract and we built out the digital platform. So we had 3 groups. So we had the supervised group, the trainers going into the firehouse. We had the control group, and then we had our group only. So we built a self-directed version of our patient, which allowed the firefighters to log in, do their exercises based on the progression of the modeling that John wanted, which was exercises, basic exercises, bird dog plank, side plank, McGurl curl up, and a variable angle Roman chair extension machine, okay? Super basic stuff. And the way we built it was, we created an algorithm that as the firefighters inputted their data, based on when John wanted them to progress, based on their input, either progress them, regress them on the program, or keep them the same. And so we did this. It was an enrollment over 6 months with 200 firefighters, and the study went for 2 years. Okay. So after the 2 years came back, what the data showed was that for every 1 hour of lost work time using our platform, it was 4 times as much for the supervised group and 5 times as much for the control group. So we showed that you could absolutely use technology to have a positive influence with, people that are trying to get better. Here's a caveat though, right? Firefighters are generally highly motivated though. But my whole mission is, and this is back to your why, and I talk about this when I'll speak, it's like, I've generalized it into 3 categories of patients. Some will, like the athletes, right? People that want to get better. Some might exercise. Some probably just won't, no matter what you do, right? But if I can get to that 2/3, we send 40,000 exercise problems a month, right? We've got over 1 million patients in our database. And so if I can influence that, 30% that will, and hopefully influence that 30% that might, we're making a big impact on overall health, okay? And that's kind of like, okay, what's your why and why do you do this? And that's ultimately kind of why I try to do what I do.
That's pretty cool. So this is kind of a shift for a moment, but Terry, do you remember the peptide guy that we interviewed that had the benchmark for over 50-year-old patients?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with this, Dave? Because I'm thinking this could be
I'm not actually.
Really, huh?
I'm not familiar with it.
It's
That's
12
the one you did, right?
different.
Is that the one you did, Spencer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what? I'll send you the videos of it because I challenged patients on it, and it was when you told me about the push-ups, it reminded me. There's 12 different activities that can be done that will determine your longevity, cardiovascular, and state of cardiovascularity, and so on. But it was, really cool stuff that you should be able to do at 50 years old and up. And especially in South Florida with the liability with, people fall, elderly folks, they lose balance or grip strength. So if they're on a ladder and they go to grip and they fall back anyway. So these 12 benchmark they're researched, they're documented, and it's super cool. I'll send it to you. I was wondering if you were familiar with it, but it was
interesting.
It's become rather I don't know how popular.
That would be awesome. To put on the web exercises, benchmark for 50, benchmark for 60.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And each one is graded in fair, medium, and excellent achievement. So it's also motivating for people over 50. So I thought, wow, while you were talking about that it takes the push-up thing you just mentioned and like makes it even more broad-based.
Yeah. No,
we'll talk more about
absolutely.
that later.
No, absolutely. We can continue that conversation, definitely.
I'll send them over, the videos over to you. But anyway, so what you were saying about motivating people through a platform like what you have, is there other little suggestions or items that are in that program other than the doctor being able to follow the patient?
Yeah, I would say a couple things. One is what we're working on now. One thing on the technology side, and then a couple ideas on patient interaction as it relates to providing home care, is that providers want things simple. They want things that are systematic and easy. So what we'll be releasing soon is you can schedule out like 12 weeks of a program if you want. So you can do phase 1 for the first month, and then it'll automatically progress somebody to phase 2. Then it'll automatically progress phase 3 and so forth. So it kind of takes a lot of that interaction thinking out of it if the provider just sets it up from the beginning and then goes. Obviously, they'll have oversight to change it and update and so forth accordingly. But yeah, that's something which I think will really help providers, where just kind of set it and go, and then they still can track patients, but they don't have to get in as often. On the interaction side, less is more. I mean, so often I'll look in some of the data and providers are giving like 12 exercises, 20 exercises. It's like, no, give 2 or 3, just a couple. If they prove they can do those and they want more, maybe for an athlete, okay, great. Just less is more. I'd rather have somebody do 2 things right than 10 things not really right and not even at all, right? Because they're so overwhelmed.
I
I interject for something. Do you ever have requests for like when you said the phase 1, 2, and 3, like getting ready for a sport, like I'm a big snow skier, so it's like getting ready for the snow ski season, or getting ready for a triathlon, or getting ready for a football season. Do you have stuff like that that's sports specific that is phase 1, 2, and 3?
2 things. We have courses on our education site that talks about that, so you can apply that with the home exercise program. We have protocols. So we have close to 100 pre-made protocols based on conditions. We did have sport-specific ones, and we changed it, but I'm honestly thinking of going back. And the reason we changed it, because we would get support tickets from, if you're a DC, you might train someone different than a PT versus an ATC and so forth. So that's why we kind of moved away, because I mean, there's no right or wrong. Everybody comes from a different perspective, and that's really what WebExercises is. You know what? If you prescribe exercises, you're a client of ours. I don't care if you're DC, PT, ATC, strength and conditioning. We've had some super skilled trainers on our education platform that are amazing, right? So everybody can bring a set of knowledge, and everybody has a certain skill set. But with WebExercises, you can also create your own programming. You can also create your own. Here's my football programming. Here's my this. So then it's like one click, and then boom, you can give it to somebody. But it's interesting you saying that, because we've been having discussions about bringing that back. But that's one of the things that we ran into when we did have sports specific, because we deal with a broad demographic. everybody would be saying, well, you should be doing this instead and that instead and so forth. So yeah, it's a good question though.
I think that's great, but what Terry was saying is like you pull up a recipe for training for a half or a full marathon, and maybe you have all the exercises or activities or stretching that you suggest, but have it so it's customizable. So
correct,
if you're an athletic
it
trainer,
is exactly. Right? So when it pulls it up, they have full control over to edit it and not. And that's when we were talking about. It's a good example. Like here's a 12-week training program. That's where we started talking about it again, because a lot of sports is these programming, right? So what I was talking to you earlier about being able to do a 12-week a program that automatically progresses, that's where some of the sport discussions started coming up again. And that's why we're thinking about reintroducing that when we do have that automatic progression. So you could set a marathon training schedule for eight weeks or soccer schedule for 12 weeks or whatever it is. Yeah. So.
What about conditions? Did you mention this? Maybe you did. Condition specific. Like I hate using the term core strength because it's so overused. But like if somebody wants more core strength,
yes. So there's two ways. Our search database, you can choose body region. We have different libraries from balance to women's health to yoga to nerve flossing. We have a variety of libraries, okay? It also has protocols as well, like you're talking about, for conditions. And it starts with, I think the first one's like an Achilles tendonitis or ankle sprain, and it goes all the way through to rotator cuff and progressive strengthening. So there's usually 2 or 3 phases with just about every protocol we have. So we have close to 100 protocols with progressive strengthening.
Oh my, wow, that's outstanding.
And you can also, we have probably close to 4,000 exercises, but you can also add your own. So you go, you know what, Dave Cruz doesn't have, WebExercise doesn't have my exercise I want. Well, you can upload your own photos and videos, knock yourself out. So there you go. Create your own library.
So cool.
All right, then. Good to know. I want to talk about AI and other wearable technologies.
Yep.
Is there any integration that you may have in the future for that, or what do you think about that currently and how?
Yeah. So here's another. Do we have time for another story?
Yeah.
Oh, already. Game on.
So this is okay. I'll give you the story, and this is where I kind of want to go. Back in 2013, I think it was. So I practiced with a couple orthopedic surgeons, and one was a shoulder doc, one's a hip doc, and we started talking about how can we create a platform different than WebExercises that allowed them to give patients the education they need, pre-surgical, post-surgical, and maybe some post-surgical care before they get to PT, because they repeat the same thing over and over again based on the condition, right?
Yeah.
So we created this company called PhysioMD, and it was all designed to do that. And one of our there was 4 of us. So it was the 3 of us, and then the 4th partner was a tech guy out of Silicon Valley, which was a really good friend of one of the docs. And so we created this with video education to the patient. We used WebExercises. We shot content specific for post-surgical and how to care for yourself for a week or 2 prior to PT. The programming was such that there were 4 phases. That first, just simple range of motion. They had to check off whether they could, lift their arm so far, what was swelling and so forth. There were a bunch of checkpoints, and once they checked them off, it would move to the next level of exercises, okay? The other thing we did, we had a gaming company out of Israel that we integrated some of their technology. So nowadays, if you look at a lot of these digital AI trackers, you put the camera on and it tracks their arm and range of motion. You can see, right? I had the beta in 2014 for shoulder. I would put my iPad up, move my arm, and it would track my arm with no sensors or anything. In 2014, 10 years ago, okay? using gaming technology that we wanted to integrate, because we wanted objective data for the surgeons to say, here's the range of motion, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So fast forward, we had a lot of opportunities with big insurance companies that literally said, our musculoskeletal care is like, $5 billion a year. If anything you can do, we're on. Okay. So the problem is, I was busy with WebExercises and trying to run a business, 2 busy surgeons.
Yeah.
The fourth partner gets hired by I won't say the company, but it's a fruit. We'll just say it. It's a round red fruit. He got hired by them. And it absorbed all of his time, even though he's like, don't worry about it and so forth. Then we started going a little sideways on kind of wanting to do more and integrate more and so forth. And we just kind of, I think, lost track of where we initially wanted to go. And with software, it's like, what's the MVP? What's the minimal viable product to get out there? You're always going to reiterate. You're always going to update and so forth. And I think we just lost focus. And it kind of just died a slow death, PhysioMD. And I was just like, because we all dumped cash in, we all dumped sweat equity in. But going back to what you were saying about AI, I would like to be able to start tracking some movements with patients, right? In the same way. And the availability of the technology is so much easier now with what Apple has available and so forth. So that's where I'd want to go more in that direction for. But yeah, so there's another story.
No, that's great. Those are good stories. Fascinating that you had that.
Gray hair, that's what ages,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Or no hair. That's,
No hair.
But that interesting to know that history of tracking. There was very few programs out there, I remember, that actually would track biomechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than putting dots on your
correct
body parts. And,
exactly. And that's everything is becoming much more data driven and objective and so forth, which I think is essential. We built our own digital outcome assessment questionnaire, so you can send patients like an SF-36 or bone, mouth, neck, and or back disability, and they fill it out on their phone, and it comes back digitally scored to the provider. So just things like that to help the provider establish the efficacy of care, whether it is you're just trying to get somebody better, or whether it's a PI, whether it's private insurance. It's just kind of that's the world we're working in now. So. We want to try and obviously support the provider the most objectively as we can, but then what can we do to the patient to help them stay engaged? Because if our patients aren't successful, we're not successful, right?
Yeah. You mentioned post-surgical rehab and stuff that someone could follow along for shoulder. But now what's really become popular is prehab.
Mm-hmm.
Some surgeons are very progressive and are having their patients do prehab.
Correct.
So they're less comorbidities. In fact, we interviewed a spine surgeon that evaluates the patient's nutritional perspectives and habits, because he's doing artwork on you, and if you screw it up because you ate like shit, that's So so prehab has become very vogue. You got stuff like that?
Absolutely. And so that's why I feel so fortunate. I mean, I worked with, I think, a couple of the best surgeons, in the Bay Area. They were very conservative. I mean, so often, Mark, especially with his hips, and with hips, you get SI, you get all sorts of glute hip dysfunction and so forth. And a lot of times he'd just be like, go see Dave for 4 weeks first. Just, Or Dan was a shoulder guy, and a lot of times you get thoracic, right? All the scapular stuff, and you'd be like, go see Dave for a bit. So that's where, I don't see the divide as much from my perspective between medical and chiropractic and so forth, because we can provide a huge service that's needed. It's just a matter of connecting with the right ones. And here's an interesting kind of tidbit. It's a little off topic, but it has to do with rehabs. There used to be some pushback, or at least when I went to school, it was who's the straight, who's the mixer, and so forth, which means all that, right? It's just, not the crazy thing. Here's the interesting thing is that In the 1800s, there was a guy named by Bernard McFadden. He basically, his whole mission was health and wellness through fitness, diet, better care for yourself. The early chiropractors of the 1900s adopted his teachings called physical culture. That transcended into BJ. If you look at pictures of the clinic in Davenport, there's pictures of BJ's gym for patients at the facility. That's what a lot of times in my lecture, I'll throw that up. It's an old photo that has a bike, has different exercise equipment. So anybody that says, oh, you're a mixer because you're an exercise, or anybody that talks about it's not part of chiropractic, exercise is more founded in chiropractic than anything else. And that's another reason why I don't care what your philosophy is, you should be giving patients something active to do.
Just for, because we have some lay listeners out there, just to clarify, straight and mixer is not a sexual preference. It's a chiropractic philosophy of one that would have straights that just do. Come on, Dave, right? What did you think when you heard? Never mind. I'm not asking you.
No. I'm just shaking my head.
Okay. SMH. Gotcha. And so, a straight is one who just adjusts, and then a mixer is one who employs, exercise and all sorts of physical therapy. And I know that Terry's dying right now that I brought that up, but hey, we do have some lay listeners that might have misconstrued what you were talking about. One lay listener? What is that what you're saying? I know Terry's got a question for you, but I'm going to ask you that one more here about misconceptions about injury prevention and recovery and so on. What are some of those experiences you may have on WebEx that go over injury prevention?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, the data is insurmountable that if you do some sort of prehab, you're going to cut down on injuries. I mean, just look at high school girls, 13 to 18 years with the incidence of ACL, right? If you look at something like that due to weak glute medius and hip rotators and so forth and bad biomechanics, I mean, if you do prehab as part of that, then you're going to cut it down. I mean, it's not even anything which is debatable at this point. I mean, it really isn't, especially in sports. I'm coaching my daughter's high school varsity volleyball team, and when we started off the season, we were doing some conditioning to make sure and trying to get their hips strong and so forth. So it should just be part of what's done, not only for youth sports, but I mean, any sport, back to kind of weekend warriors going out and injuring themselves, right? Because they're not just doing some simple things on their own. So to me, it's nothing that's in question, whether you're going in for surgery or whether you're just trying to prevent an injury for an athlete. To me, it's not even a question.
With injury recovery, as well as changing your paradigm as far as going to a different level of fitness, whether you're a sedentary going to active or active going to elite, there's a huge mental component. And whether it's fear of re-injury or just mentally trying to get to a different platform, how does your program incorporate the elements of the mental side?
Yeah, I think that has to do with it's back to the shared responsibility in that, for one, we want to make sure that it's the provider gives the exercise which is reasonable, which, like I said, 2 or 3, right? Because there's a whole biosocial model as relates to this, right? There's physical, there's mental, there's there's all sorts of that. There's tons of research on that. So we tend to just focus on more of the musculoskeletal, but there are, whether it's the fear avoidance or whether it is, the previous injury, there's all these different factors. So you have to take into consideration as the provider some of those and what those barriers might be. The other thing too is, encouragement in the sense that making sure the exercises are appropriate, back to the 2 or 3 simple things they can do. And we, in our platform, it shows if the patient actually logged in or read their email or anything, things along those lines. So if the exercise program is sent and the provider sees that it wasn't opened, it was sent and delivered, but nothing, then it's up to the provider. It's up to me to re-engage that patient and discuss, we really want you to get better. This is really important. And what's the why behind that barrier? So at least we try and give some feedback to the provider, lets them know, is their patient engaging? Are they not? And if they are, how much? Are they having pain? How are they progressing? Or if they're not engaging at all, well, that's a different discussion. And that's where, back to that shared responsibility, you can have that dialogue with that patient to help them make them successful, because we all want our patients to be successful ultimately.
A lot of people ask, what keeps us going during these long recording sessions? And the truth, it's all about the coffee. Stark roast to be exact. Seriously, this stuff is the perfect fuel to get us through every episode. And it's bold, it's smooth, and it's exactly what we need, whether we're cracking jokes or diving deep with a guest. Stark roast keeps me sharp, keeps me focused. It's the fuel behind every great conversation that we have here. Whether it's early in the morning or late at night, Stark roast is there to keep us energized and ready to roll. So if you're a coffee lover like us, or just need that little extra boost to get you through the day, we highly recommend Stark Roast. It's the good stuff. Thanks for Stark Roast for sponsoring this episode, and click on the link below in the description to buy some of your own. It's the real deal. Now let's get back into it.
Very good. Very good. So we are nearing the end of our program, but we would be remiss in going over the rapid fire questions, which is oftentimes the most fun. Now, the rule is you're supposed to answer briefly and quickly and, off the cuff.
Yeah.
But we always tend to get hung up on an answer and make a joke or comment. And so it's fair game.
Okay.
But Dave, there's 5 questions. And if you're ready for question number 1, give me the thumbs up. You good?
Hit me.
Right on. You're now a high school varsity volleyball coach. In your early career, you played against the great Karch Karali. What is one lesson you learned as a player that you still use as a coach today?
Well, let me clarify that. I didn't play against him as a bit older, but I played against guys that did play against him. So be humble as you lose to better players. There's always people better than you out there.
Oh, that's for sure. Oh, man.
Like I tell my team, win humbly and lose humbly, It's like,
agreed.
So good.
Question number 2, Dave. If you could instantly master any skill or hobby for that matter, what would it be?
Piano or guitar?
Really?
Don't know why.
Yeah.
I've just always wanted to play musical instrument, and I've tried the piano a little bit, but oh my God, when you're old, it's hard. My son is self-taught on the guitar, which is awesome. And I listen to him and go, God, I wish I could do that. So I would say, yeah.
Yeah, my son's self-taught.
So it's in your genetics somewhere, huh?
He's self-taught on the piano, and it's like, how the hell did you do that? I've been trying to self-teach guitar for 3 years now, and I still can't believe Mary Had a Little Lamb. I mean, it's terrible.
I know, exactly. Exactly. It's like golf with my son. It's like, you can't replace youth. He hits it 50 yards past me now. It's like he's 16 years old. You can't replace youth.
Asshole.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'll still get in his head mentally, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to do something.
Question number 3, Dave.
Okay.
What's the most ridiculous piece of advice you ever received, and did you try it?
Oh my gosh.
I'm thinking about that story you told us earlier about the guy that you almost
I'm thinking of something more ridiculous than that. I don't know, old Ernie. I don't know, but he was a snake oil salesman. I'll tell you that. I'll just say, thanks to Mike. I didn't take Ernie's advice, because I probably wouldn't be sitting here with you right now, right?
Oh my gosh,
right.
That's probably
true.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
Yes, very good, very good.
Yeah.
Question number 4, David. You're stranded on a desert island.
Okay.
The only one album that you could listen to forever. What's your pick?
Ooh. I probably have to go with like older school, like Journey, Escape, or something like that.
Classics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Classics.
Something like back when I was in high school and so forth.
Classic.
Yeah. Probably
good.
something like that. Yeah.
I'm going to break the rule here a minute. Terry, what's yours?
Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
Ooh, classic.
Yours?
All right. Ready?
Yours?
Yours?
I was thinking a while you were. I don't even know why I wasn't prepared to answer, but for some bizarre reason, I wore out the 2 albums in my life that albums. Do you remember those that I wore out? One was Ted Nugent, but the other one was Black Sabbath, Masters of Reality. To this day, I still will listen to it in my car. I don't know what it does to me. It just. I don't know.
I mean, there's so many classics. You got The Wall, you've got Zeppelin, you got Aerosmith, Dream On. I mean, there's so many classics that you could just go on. Beach Boys for us California guys. Endless Summer. There's so many classics.
There are.
Thank God we're not on a desert island. We only have to pick one. We could have a whole plethora of them.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I still got albums. In fact, I
did too.
Hold on to the vinyl.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 5. If you wrote an autobiography, what would it be? What would be the catchy title that perfectly sums up your life, your whole life's journey so far?
Winning at business by replacing yourself.
Oh, you were ready for this question.
I've thought about that. No, it's funny, guys, because I don't
say it again.
Winning at business by replacing yourself. Because when you replace yourself, you can sell your company, you can walk away for a month, everything continues to grow and flourish and run, and you can make whatever decisions you want. That's how you know.
Spencer, there's the title for this podcast.
Yeah, I know.
That honestly, when I sell WebExercise and I'm done, that's literally what I want to just write a journey, and that's my goal: winning a business by replacing yourself.
Love.
You need to write a book with that title, because that would be
wow.
That's funny because I tell some of my friends, I go, "What's your?"
I'm gonna look at my phone because I'm writing that down right now. So don't give me crap, but that's awesome. Winning.
That is good.
Go ahead,
Dave. Man, this was a fantastic. I really
it was a pleasure, guys. I had a blast.
Good stuff. Love the stories. Well, anything? Any words of wisdom, Terry, you want to share, or
no? I think, and we're going to put the description to all your programs on our website. So if people listen to the show and want to find you and get more information, but thank you. You solve problems that every practitioner, big or small, has. So if people haven't heard about WebExercises.com, they need to go check it out. So thank you so much for spending some time. I know you're a busy man, so thank you so much for spending time with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Can't thank you enough. It's been great. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks, David. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Crackin Backs Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Crackin Backs Podcast. Catch new episodes every Monday. See you next time.